Yo guys, what's the kid? It's the kid, it's the kid, it's the kid, it's the kid. Yo, 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 yo. So we're here again for what has now become our weekly event, the top 10 show with me, HH, and to my right, the male gigolo himself, the XXL X-rated dude, the man with the long hair, Portugal's heartbreaker.
All right. Thank you, man. Thanks. I'm sorry I couldn't make last week, but you know, we had some personal matter to attend to, but I'm very happy to feature tonight on time and ready to roll.
Okay, so basically, so just giving you like a little bit of a precursor to this, I think we can just maybe just give you a background before we go into it. Is basically, look, I am not really a big single issue comic book reader, you know. And my whole comic book thing is like, even before we even went online, is that whenever I go into a comic book store, my main thing is I'm going for the graphic novel. So I am more so into graphic novels and really the whole book. And I'll admit to you, man, like, and maybe I don't know whether I'm embarrassed or not. I prefer graphic novels to books. You know, like it has to be a really amazing book for me to really get in there. But for me, I love the whole thing of amazing artwork and the story. And so when I was making this list, I had to balance between the great artwork and great story. So the story and the artwork had got to be at a similar level and so forth. And also the rest of like impacts, what it did and everything. But what I think is good about this list is that unlike other top 10s we do, I think our lists are going to be very, very different. They're going to be very, very different, you know, because I think that Machine is probably going to pull from stuff from way, way back. Whereas I think that I may be pulling from a very finite kind of time period and so forth. But I do think that it's quite a varied list that I do have in terms of artwork, storytelling, and so forth. So I think I am pretty happy with this list. So what about Machines? What about you? What about your list?
I mean, like I was saying just prior to us going live, we were sort of discussing what my comic book buying habits were like. And I would say that these days they've sort of become like yours in the sense that I go more towards the trade paperbacks and the hardcovers than I do the single issues. But back in the day, I would have a standing order of all these issues, all these different comics that I really liked, and I would come back home with every month with like a pile of them. And I collected a big, sizable collection. You know, nothing for you to write home about, but a pretty good one. And nothing, man. So I stopped reading comics for like the last 8 years. Basically, I just retook the mantle and sort of the habit recently. And DC and Marvel are down the drain completely. So forget DC and Marvel. They've been completely contaminated by far leftist nut jobs, and basically, you know, they're turning every character into. It's all about identity politics, you know, the stuff that you rail against, and that I think we agree on. We sort of align in that sense, you know. That instead of like creating new characters that are you know, minorities, which I'm all for, they basically try to subvert existing characters and basically destroy them and twist them in a way that so that they represent everything that they didn't represent prior. You know what I mean?
Basically, Miles Morales, which is why I flipping hate the character of Miles Morales personally.
But Miles Morales is, you know, he's the less offensive one in my estimation. But for instance, they made Captain America. They turned Captain America to a Nazi. I mean, that's crazy. I mean, it was Captain America.
No, I think basically the thing with comics is that they just get bored.
Mm-hmm.
Because remember, these guys have to make something every single month. So like, what can we do to make ourselves excited and make it fun for us? And then we'll then go. So it's pretty much just a thing of like, let's just do something that keeps us interested. But yeah, sometimes some of the things that guys do, I'm like, really, you know.
It's absolutely, these days it's become heavily politicized. People have stopped reading, basically, when you would think it would be the exact opposite, because comics and the comic creations have never been as popular as they have at the moment. They're heavily popular because of the MCU.
Oh yeah, the movies, yeah.
So you would think that the Marvel and DC would be able to capitalize on this popularity of superhero flicks, but no, because the kids go home and then they read, Bruce Banner. Instead of Bruce Banner, it's Amadeus Cho. Instead of Iron Man, it's like some chick named Riri Williams. Instead of it's like what am I?
It's like, why is Iron Man now Riri? Like, what are you trying to prove doing that? So it's like I have no idea. Okay, so let's get within us. So we'll start with our 10. So Machine, you do the honors. You can start with your number 10. So what is number 10?
But I don't. Can I just like say that list of books that could have perfectly have made my top 10?
Go for it. Okay, cool.
Quite make it. One of them is TMNT Body Count. It was a one shot by Kevin Eastman and this amazing artist whose name escapes me right now. But go look it up because the artwork is just off the chain. He's one of the greats. Superman New Krypton, a really nice run. Ranma 1/2. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but that was one of my first mangas. And it's a really good read. All-Star Superman by Grant Morrison. Mark Waid's The Flash. I hate Mark Waid as a person, but he's a good writer. Secret Wars. We all know Secret Wars, right? The first big crossover that really was highly influential.
Wait, so what's that crossover of Secret
Wars? It was a big crossover where they first got every single hero together for a massive tentpole event under Jim Shooter, who was like the best editor in chief that Marvel or probably comics ever had, and he came up with this idea and spearheaded it, and it was revolutionary in terms of sales and set a tentpole for the industry. They've been trying to replicate it ever since. And that maybe I should have included that actually. Now that I mentioned it. Wolverine, which was a one shot by Chris Claremont and Frank Miller, that was amazing. Infinity Gauntlet, which inspired these last
Infinity War and all that stuff.
Yeah, Infinity War, but it's much better, way better than the movies. Batman Year One by Frank Miller, which is the origin story for Batman. And then Batman The Killing Joke, which is a fantastic novel.
Killing Joke didn't make your list?
It didn't make my list, didn't quite make my list. Infinity Crisis by Jeff Johns, which is a really good crossover event as well. And Spawn by Todd McFarlane, which I think... did I mention Savage Dragon? I did. Okay.
I don't think you did. Savage Dragon. Okay.
Savage Dragon by Eric Larson, who's an absolute idiot. Really like a guy that really gets on my nerves, but he's a fantastic artist and a decent writer. And when Image came out with their titles, they had Spawn, Savage Dragon, and Youngblood, and a number of other titles, right? And they were all by superstar creators from the Marvel. From Marvel.
Oh, yeah, I remember because they broke away from Marvel.
They broke away and they started their own thing under Todd McFarlane's tutelage. And I think that the best book, and one of the few books that still remains and is still being published, actually, was Savage Dragon. At least initially. Then it petered off, and it's like it doesn't know what it's doing anymore. But the first, I would say, 50 issues were amazing. It's a good run.
I don't know. I don't know whether to envy you or feel better because there's not a single hair on your chest, and my hair really looks like a flipping bear. So I don't know whether just to go like.
I don't know, man. It's too much estrogen, man. I gotta start taking too much.
Okay, so look, man. Kick it off, man. You're number 10.
All right, my top 10. You all ready? It's The Death and Return of Superman, which is not one single novel, right? It's not one single novel, but it was an absolutely epic event that went cross media. Everybody mentioned it. It got plenty of mentions on CNN and what have you, and Time magazine, and it could have been poorly executed, because it had everything to be poorly executed, because it is a cash grab in a sense, you know what I mean? But it was so well thought out that that it's a seminal work, and I think that it's too bad that they actually brought him back, you know, because it was so impactful when he died.
And also it was botched up by that loser Zack Snyder, who tried to.
Oh man, I don't even consider Snyder in the same universe as this thing, you know, this event, because the story it deserves a lot more than what Snyder did to it. But yeah, the actual death. First of all, they came up with a brand new villain that you'd never seen before, and it's funny that they could have spent a lot of brain power trying to come up with a villain that had a cool origin story and had some kind of maniacal master plan to overtake the universe or what have you. But they decided to go a completely different route, which I thought was really fresh and really unique and smart, which was, let's just make this war machine, this creature of absolute destruction that has no purpose in life other than to destroy.
Just one purpose.
Just go, go, go. It's
like realize that
it's basically the Hulk without an off switch.
No. But also, do you realize that these dudes literally? There's a point that the moments they fight all the way till the very end.
Right.
The moment that these guys fight, it's literally a 1v1 epic fight all the way till the very end.
It's
and they did it. They really killed Superman, because you know what the weird thing is that is possibly the best, in my opinion, the best Superman story, because they finally pushed the Boy Scouts to really make him big, rather than him being clean. Because I know you're now in a flipping dogfight.
Absolutely, and it was the way that they did it was so epic, because Superman is power levels or so many orders of magnitude removed from any other superhero in the DC universe, that it was fun to watch these other guys that are heavy hitters, right? That would otherwise be heavy hitters, just reduced to audience members because they couldn't get a lick in. You know what I mean? So all these guys like Batman and Green Lantern and they were just dispatched very easily by Doomsday, and eventually they were like, all right, we can't do anything. We just got to watch and see how this thing's going to unfold. And it's just that last scene with him dying and Lois hanging on him, and
he was reborn, but at the end of the comic, he did die.
Yeah, he did die, and he died. And the thing that was cool about this is that the editorial master planners kept him dead for a good, I think it was like 2 or 3 years almost, in real time, So for they kept the comics going, and it was the aftermath of Superman's death, and how Metropolis, the city, had to deal with Superman being gone. And then there was these Superman cultists. Everybody started there was Superman pretenders like Steel and the what was the cyborg Superman called, man? Did you get that far? It was there was all these characters. Superboy was confused as Superman's return for a while.
Superboy, man.
Yeah, but there was all these dudes that people were so desperate to have Superman back, right? That they would latch on to these people and go, no, that's Superman. It's Superman. He's coming back. And it was never actually Superman. And then finally, Superman did come back with the mullet, and but with the kick-ass, really cool, slick, all black suit and the silver.
Because also remember, Tim Burton's Superman Lives. That is, he wanted to do that story, the whole thing of the death and the resurrection of Superman. And what pissed me, because you know what I was supposed to, and obviously,
but with Nicolas Cage, or
it's that is still a story that needs to be told, because Snyder did such a horrendous job on that with the horrible Dawn of Justice and the piece of crap Justice League, that it's such an amazing epic story. If it just got a better director, a Mel Gibson, maybe Jim Caviezel, to come in and do it properly in an epic, serious way, I think that is still a great story, man. So, okay, look, man.
So can I just say something? I don't want to interrupt you, but you know who was supposed to direct JLA originally was the guy that did Mad Max, Fury Road.
George Miller.
George Miller. So imagine that, man. Imagine how how many orders of magnitude better it would have been than Snyder's crap fest.
Yeah, no. As I said, look, Snyder, the guy that is a flipping moron, man. So my number 10 now. This might be a bit different for you guys. So my number 10 is one that many of you may not have read or seen. The Matrix comics. As you can see, the Matrix comics.
That's your fanboyism speaking louder than
you see.
Your sense.
You see, I knew people were going to go there and say this is my fanboyism, but let me assure you. So these came out around. This came out between Reloaded and Revolutions, and the beauty thing about this is that these are a collection of stories. So it's a whole bunch of different artists, different writers, who all within a short story tell a particular tale about the Matrix. So, and each story deals with concepts of reality, of choice, and all these different kinds of philosophy. So it is a really good kind of extrapolation on the Matrix world. And the key thing about it is maybe 2 or 3 stories linking with the films, but 90% of the stories in these have literally almost nothing to do with the film. So the beauty about this is that you can literally pick these up without watching any of the films and just enjoy the artistry and the storytelling of each of them. So I really, really recommend these, because I just think that
Who's it written by? Who's it written by?
What?
Who's it written by?
No. A bunch of people. So
okay. Right.
No. So basically, it's a collection of about 20 short stories.
So it's an anthology, but it's got to be written by fairly well-known people, or not.
Well, I mean, I can't remember all of the names, but some of the artists are well known because they try to get famous writers and artists known in the comic book industry to basically. Do you know this guy Jeff Darrow?
Of course, yeah.
Because obviously, and I think he does. He is artist in a few of the comics here. So basically,
he's actually really good.
Of the in the comic industry, and getting them to come in and just give a short story, beginning, middle, and end, set within the world of the Matrix, or dealing with the kinds of concepts that the Matrix talks about. So it's a really, really good thing. And I think when you look at the the artwork and everything.
Is it black and white?
With the kind of artwork that you see, I don't know how you can see the stuff. So it's and what makes it beautiful is that from one story is like comedy, black and white. Another one is it's more like a painting. It's much more dark. It's more morbid. Another one is much more.
I think I saw Dave Gibbons when you flipped the pages, and Dave Gibbons is one of the great all-time artists. He did The Killing Joke, and he did Watchmen as well.
Mm.
So if he's involved in that, I got to give it credit.
No. I mean, basically, I think you would like it. I think you would like if you're a comic book, because see, the key thing just to say that you don't need to be a Matrix fan to like these. It's really good, diverse art and really good storytelling as well. So that's my number 10 is the Matrix comics. So
that's cool. We're gonna learn from each other with this,
That's the thing. That's the thing, So because see, I've read Death of Superman, so I already know that. So I'm waiting for one that I'm ahead of. So you're number 9, bro.
My number 9. My number 9. I think you haven't read it. Maybe you have, but it is a seminal work in the medium, and it's by Grant Morrison, and the name is Animal Man, and it's a fairly short run, but it's a fantastic run. And
Animal Man.
Yeah, and since you haven't read it, the thing about it is what it did that was really out there and experimental, and it just sort of blew your mind. back when you were reading it, is that it broke the fourth wall in really inventive ways that have since been replicated with Deadpool and other characters, and sort of become it's become a tired shtick. But Animal Man was like sort of like a fourth-rate DC character that Grant Morrison, who I rate as probably my favorite writer of all time, took and reinvented and did some of the most interesting things you can imagine with a character. And I don't know what else to tell you other than to go read it immediately. And I don't want to give away too much, because if I do, then it'll sort of.
Well, I don't want to give anything
away. No.
So, well, I don't want to give anything away, but Grant Morrison wrote one of the best graphic novels I've ever read, which is on my list. I don't want to give it away.
Okay.
But Grant Morrison wrote one of the best graphic novels that I've ever read. So if Grant Morrison is involved, I'm interested. So Animal Man, I'm putting it on.
You know the thing about Grant Morrison that's really funny is that he's probably my like I said, my favorite writer, but he's definitely also hit or miss. I either go head over heels for the stuff that he's writing, or I think it's unreadable. There's stuff like Final Crisis and Invisibles that's way too obscure and sort of very tough to penetrate and full of references, and it's not the stuff. It loses the readability. And Animal Man is very brisk. It's a breezy read. Whatever profundity it has is left for you to interpret. It's there for you to pick apart, but it's not in your face. And yeah, I highly recommend it. Seminal work, and the covers are amazing. The covers are fantastic, by Brian Boland, who did the cover for The Killing Joke as well. We just spoke of Dave Gibbons, who did the interiors for The Killing Joke, but the cover, that famous cover with the Joker going like smile and the Polaroid,
yeah,
or the whatever, the camera. That's Brian Boland, who's one of the great all-time cover artists, and he did all these different covers for Animal Man that are fantastic. That's part of it as well. Comics, cover art is important as well.
The reason why I even picked up the Spawn comic was because of the cover art. The cover art was so amazing. I was like, oh, boom, grab. Yeah. So if the cover doesn't grab me, then like I'm out, man. All right, so my number 9. So my number 9 is a very, very famous book. And people may be surprised that it's actually this low, because this is seen as probably one of the most famous, popular graphic novels that there are. So my number 9 is, let me just make sure that it's actually the right one. Yeah. The Dark Knight Returns. That's my number 9. A superb and a great concept for a graphic novel. Just the very idea that you're going to actually make Batman old, and you're going to tell a story about an older, grizzled Batman was something that nobody had even thought of before. Because so many people were like, Batman, he's this young, suave guy, playboy, dude who's strong and everything. But Frank Miller, being the kind of genius that he was, I'm going to come at this from a whole different angle. And I just think that, the idea of it, the 2/3 of Dark Knight Returns are amazing. The reason why it's not higher enough is the last third. I think that the whole thing with him and Superman, I personally thought was just stupid. And Frank Miller is responsible for people thinking that Batman can last a second with Superman. He literally is responsible for that. But apart from that, I just think it's
Well,
a genius
well,
idea.
listen, but
It's
if
just
he has,
a
if
really
he has,
genius idea.
if he's got a kryptonite ring like he had in that book, and then that's that's the secret. I will say this. I do think the Dark Knight is pretty overrated. It's a good book. It's a very readable book, but I'm not a fan of the artwork. Um, and there's a lot of there's an overuse for me of talking heads where it's just like these panels with like TV anchors going on about whatever. But it is a seminal piece of work, and it's revolutionary in the sense that it really brought the concept of the Elseworlds, of you getting like like an iconic character and doing something, just running with it, and doing something unconstrained by the bounds of the boundaries of the character, that are very locked in. You can't like turn. Well, these days you can do anything with characters, it seems, but back in the day, you couldn't put like pink lipstick on Bruce Wayne. You'd be fired the next day. These days you can do whatever. But it was fun and refreshing to see a very dark take on Batman and a very grim take on him. And it did herald that changed everything, because Batman was very campy in the 60s on to the set, and that went on to the 70s. It started changing a little bit. He started getting a little bit more serious with Neil Adams, and then with The Dark Knight Returns and Frank Miller's take on Batman, that totally went out the window, and we embraced the grim, dark Batman that I feel is sort of the version of the character that I most latch on to.
Because I've always found it very stupid whenever I see Robin and Batgirl and Nightwing. I mean, for me, I just say that's just garbage. Like, for me, the Batman that I connect with is where he's dark, he's lonesome, he's alone, and he's gritty and he's edgy. That's just the one that just makes more sense for me. And I do feel like if this graphic novel heavily also influenced Tim Burton's approach to the character as well. Because I think it's important, because I think this came just at the right time that the 1989 film came about. So basically, Frank Miller was instrumental in changing how people viewed the character, how to draw him, and even how to write for him as well. So, and also Frank Miller also drew and also wrote the comic as well. So
good shout. Even though I think it's slightly overrated, it's still a good shout, because most comic book people would include it as well in the top 10.
So
I go number 8?
Number 8.
You ready for this?
Yes, sir.
People, hold on to your seats, because this one. No, I'm joking. This is actually, you might have read this, HH, and you might be with me. It's called The Ultimates by Mark Millar, which was a reinterpretation of the Avengers. All right, so let me give some context. So, like in the late 90s or early zeros, I think, Marvel decided to do an offshoot universe of the main continuity that they had going, right? Where they sort of gave artists free reign to reinterpret their core characters, and they all lived in this shared universe called the Ultimate Universe. And that's where the idea of actually tall Wolverine came about, which you're so adamantly against, was in that the Ultimate X-Men. They reinterpreted Wolverine as being a tall guy. So that's why actually Hugh Jackman didn't annoy me so much when they finally came around to do the movie. But anyway, one of the things that they did, Mark Millar relaunched, who had written this really nice book called the what was it called, man?
Kick-Ass?
No, Prometheus. Yeah, he did write Kick-Ass, but he wrote also a book that was like the precursor. I'll remember it in a second. It was the precursor to this Ultimates book, because it took the idea of the superhero team, right, and deconstructed it in much the same fashion that Alan Moore had done with Watchmen, by giving it sort of like a grim, dark patina. But
do you rate Mark Millar as a good writer, though? or is he a bit?
Mark Millar, read The Ultimates, and I think that's a really good book. I think he's got a very strong sense of what makes an idea sellable. So he's a good idea man, which is an important thing for a writer to have. He's good with pace. He does get a little tiring with his shtick of making everybody like assholes, basically. And that's what he did with The Ultimates to some extent. But there's like some fantastic scenes. You haven't read The Ultimates, man? Dude, read The Ultimates. Read The Ultimates. You're going to love it. You're going to love it. And one of the things that they did that actually influenced the Avengers strongly is that they based basically the Iron Man character on Robert Downey Jr., right? He even says it. There's like a scene in the book where there's a journalist going like, Mr. Stark, now that you're such a big deal, if they ever make a movie about you, who would play you? And he's like, are you kidding me? Robert Downey Jr., of course.
So they say this in the comic.
In the comic, much before the Avengers movie came out. And then another thing that they did was Nick Fury, who's like a white guy with a patch. He's more like David Hasselhoff than anybody else in the standard universe. They turned him basically into Samuel L. Jackson. So the Avengers is actually more. It's actually closer to the Ultimates interpretation of the Avenger, of the Avengers than the actual Avengers.
Oh, wow. Yeah. No. I'll put it on the list. It's just that I think
they make Captain America so badass, man. There's this scene where he's losing a fight, right? But then he like at the end, like with the Red Skull, I think, and the Red Skull's like give up, and he's like he turns the fight around. He's like give up. You think the A on my forehead stands for France?
No. I don't know why I've never heard of the Ultimates. When did it come out?
Early zeros. I would say early zeros. Amazing art, amazing, like blow your mind out. Leave your jaw agape style art by what is his name? How can I forget these basic things? But I think I have an early onset of Alzheimer's. Brian Hitch, right? I didn't have to. Folks, you shouldn't Google things because it ruins your memory capabilities.
That's true. That's actually a very good point. Yeah. Just that my memory sucks. All right.
Brian Hitch.
My number 8, man. So this is one where I'm not sure whether you have read it, but I know that most people probably haven't read this one. But I think this is a very, very imaginative story. It's a very, very imaginative story, and I just think the concept of this story is just really, really good. And I think it's going to be a running theme that you're going to see with regards to concepts for a story. And so my number 8 is Ronin. So have you heard of this one?
Of course I have. Seminal work, amazing work by Miller.
Yeah. So for guys who don't know, so this is about a samurai who is reincarnated in a dystopian future. And then trouble ensues where he just has to pretty much navigate his way in a messed up, kind of screwed up, dark future that he sets himself in. And when you just look at even that content alone, a samurai in the far future is crazy enough. But when you just look at the kinds of characters that Frank Miller creates in this future, what they look like. I think there's a guy who, I think whether he has like a throne and a crown or something. There's just some crazy weird characters. I think Frank Miller really pushes the boundaries with regards to content, how it's represented, language, and so forth. But yeah, just in terms of a concept, it's just really interesting, because you see, I didn't know what Ronin meant. So I was like, wait, what the hell is Ronin? And then I knew, okay, Ronin is a samurai without a master. Because pretty much every samurai has a master. I think so. Once a samurai loses their master and they wander, so that means they're pretty much wandering aimlessly. They're called a Ronin, I believe.
I believe the correct way to pronounce it is Ronin.
Was that?
The correct way to pronounce it is Ronin.
Oh, oh wait. Who's that? Greg Williams?
Who's Greg Williams? I have no idea. Who's Greg Williams?
Oh no. But who are you referring to?
No, I'm referring to just the Japanese way of.
Oh.
You know how they go, oh! So, you know, like.
Samurai.
Samurai.
That's actually a pretty good rendition. It's just that you're not actually saying any Japanese. I mean, you have the voice, but you're not actually saying any Japanese. No. Look, Ronin is quality. Ronin is a quality.
By the way, that's not actual Japanese. I'm just doing.
No. You weren't saying anything, bro. I think I know like 5 words in Japanese, and that's it. So I was in Japan for 2 weeks. Only
I do one thing, which is called which is do itashimashite, which is you're welcome. You're welcome. Arigato, which is like
yeah, thank you. I know. Yeah, arigato gozaimasu is thank you very much.
Arigato gozaimasu. Yeah.
You know, Okasa is mother. Otasa is father. Sumimasu is excuse me.
Yeah, I know that from Dragon Ball. Like Gohan would go Otasa all the time. Yeah. And another thing, like I'll kill you, which is Koroshiteru.
Oh wow. Basically, you hear that a lot in anime. All right, so
yeah.
That's my number 8. So what is your number 7?
My number 7. All right, let me check it out. But by the way, that's a great shout, the Ronin shout, and it just goes to show you how amazing Frank Miller is, that he has such a diverse body of work. You know, he does have that sort of Japanese ninja fixation, but you know, Sin City is so different than Ronin, and Ronin is so different than his Batman, and he's just an amazing artist. All right, so the next one, it's not really a graphic novel, but it's a run that has been collected into a graphic novel, so I included it. And for me, it's what made Spider-Man, what made me latch on to Spider-Man as probably my favorite superhero growing up. And that's the Roger Stern, John Romita Sr. run of Spider-Man, where all the interesting stuff happened to him. Sinister Six really got their legs with that run. The Green Goblin became a threat. I think actually Stan Lee killed Gwen Stacy, but this is the most fun part of Spider-Man, because he was transitioning from the nerd, right, who couldn't get laid to save his life, to like sort of like a cool cat, you know. And I like to see that transition a lot. And the stories were just fantastically written. And for me, the seminal artist of Spider-Man remains John Romita Sr., who's the father of another very well-respected artist named John Romita Jr. And for those comic book heads out there, you'll be familiar with his name. But I digress. Just an amazing run. Highly recommended. Read it if you get a chance.
Oh no! Look, I'm a Spider-Man. I'm a huge Spider-Man fan, and I think I haven't read a Spider-Man. As in, there is not a Spider-Man graphic novel on this, and I think I'm like, what am I doing? I've not yet read a Spider-Man graphic novel that has really been able to and it's placed on this list. So I think it's just referring backwards.
Oh,
no, it
wasn't
Sorry, Seven Samurai.
Yeah, it was.
No.
It must have been. No,
it wasn't.
No, okay, but I would say this: you never found, because I'll tell you this, man. Everything from the 2000s onwards, or even the 90s with Spider-Man, like the late 90s, was disastrous. Everything from the Clone Wars onwards is disastrous with Spider-Man, and I don't think the character is ever fully recouped, because that's such a catastrophic thing to do to a character.
No. Like the best thing that happened to Spider-Man was Todd McFarlane, but they didn't really jump off from what he did, because he really made, because how he drew Spider-Man with the webbing and everything, and the detail he brought on the Spider-Man, and how he invented Venom.
Yeah, broke the mold.
It doesn't really advance from that, man.
And Eric Larson was sort of like the extension of that. And did you know, actually, that it's true that Todd McFarlane invented Venom, but did you know that Eric Larson is the one that added the super long tongue?
Oh, no.
You didn't know that? Yeah, that's funny, because you would think that, like, I think Venom, I think McFarlane, and every time I think Venom, I think that, nasty tongue all over the place. But no, that's an Eric Larson edition.
So have you heard of this Drifters? The manga anime called Drifters?
Never heard of it. But also Usagi Yojimbo is apparently a good samurai.
Oh yeah. What's it called? Sergio Leone ripped that film off with Fistful of Dollars. Complete rip off of Yojimbo.
Really?
Yep. Total rip off. And like, he didn't even question, but literally, it is the exact same story. Yeah, the exact same story, man. Okay.
I wish I had like what we should do, HH, one of these days for the next thing that we do. We should have visual aids to go with these.
Oh no! That's what I'm trying to do. It's just that I just don't have time, but normally, because basically when I did the comic book things last week, I had visual things with it. So I think, but do you know why I don't like doing it when I have you? Is because I like the suspense. So I like the whole.
But you don't have to see it. But the thing is, you don't have to see it. I'll give out my list, and I'll have an image ready to share.
I got you. Okay, yeah. So it's my own. Okay, yeah, that's cool. Yeah. All right. So my number 7 is Death of Superman. So I think we already talked about it already. You can't have a top 10 list without Death of Superman. It is as basically Machine pretty much said everything. Hugely impactful, massive, caused shockwaves beyond the comic book industry.
Sales going up like mad, like you never imagined. It was just crazy.
You
remember that cover where it was like the black cover and just the symbol, the symbol of the S, like bleeding?
Oh, no, because I think it has the kind of stick, and then you have like the ripped Superman cloth. It's basically, that is such a striking visual cover as well. And for me, I also like it is an amazing story, because I viewed Superman as a brick, like a Boy Scouts one-dimensional brick. But viewing this, I'm like, oh wow, this is what you can do with Superman, because like, give him somebody who really tests him, but give him a truly epic, big, large-scale story. So yeah, for me, Death of Superman. I mean, Machine pretty much said everything. Like,
I agree with you that Superman is typically a brick because he's the toughest character to nail. But every once in a while they get it right, and there's like 3 or 4 runs that are really seminal that everybody should read. And All-Star Superman, actually, by Grant Morrison, is amazing.
What's the one with Alex Ross?
Alex Ross, that's called Kingdom Come.
Seasons or
Kingdom Come? I think.
Yeah.
Kingdom Come. But I'm not overly fond of Alex Ross because it's too photorealistic for me as art.
Yeah, no. He's an amazing artist, but yeah, like it's not the art I like.
It's not for comics, man. It's not for comics.
All right, so give us your number 6 then.
Yeah, I will give you my number 6. Also, that other guy that looked like Terminator, the Superman guy that came back and that showed up and everybody thought was the real Superman. That's the Eradicator.
Oh, okay. I think somebody even mentioned it in the live chat. Yeah, Eradicator.
Okay, so the next one. Is he ready? Is he ready? Are you ready? Okay. Daredevil, Frank Miller.
What?
Frank Miller's Daredevil.
Oh, okay. You see, I haven't read this. I have not read this. People have said this is really amazing.
Do you feel it? No, it's dude. It's the work that really made Miller into what he became, which is one of the most respected artists of all time. Started out as an artist, he drew, right? And then he got the opportunity to write, a few issues of Daredevil, and they were like, "Oh, this is really good, but keep going at it, kid." And soon enough, he was off to the races and revolutionized the character totally. And if you haven't read it, do yourself a favor, go read it. It's a completely revolutionary work, and it reaches its apex with Daredevil Year One, which I like to include into this choice because it's part of Miller's oeuvre with Daredevil, and it's a reinterpretation of his origin story, which, with comics, they're always trying to reinterpret origin stories every 5 or so years. But with Daredevil, I feel that Miller did such an amazing job that nobody's actually, dared to tackle it since then. I may be wrong, but there's no way that they would have topped Miller because everything from Stick, Stick, the character he introduced, the idea of his dad being like a boxer that had to what did he do? The mafia forced him to to throw fights, lose, and he was a tortured guy,
Sure. Let me just hit a few of these questions just to keep guys. So I don't know about you, but there's no manga on this list. A manga, that's a separate list. There is no manga.
For me, there is.
And no, Lucas was inspired by Hidden Fortress, but it is not a complete copy. So yeah, Toshiro Mifune plays. What's it called? Alec Guinness is the Toshiro Mifune character in Hidden Fortress, but I watched Hidden Fortress and Star Wars is very different from Hidden Fortress. So he was inspired by themes, but not by the full thing. All right, carry on, bro.
Yeah, sorry, there is a manga in my list. I hate to tell you, but
okay.
You should do a separate one with mangas for sure.
And you don't need to say I already know which manga is on your list.
Oh, you do?
No. Basically, I can don't say what it is, but I think I know what it is.
Okay, all right.
And it's not that, and I'm okay. Then I'm even much more interested, man.
So we're still with the Daredevil thing. I want to say one of the things that Miller really started introducing to the character that was so unique was this sort of hard-boiled narration that was so compelling, and that he continued on with Sin City, but really started with Daredevil, and also the idea that Daredevil is the most tortured of all the Marvel superheroes. He's a Catholic, first of all, which I find really interesting. You don't see too many religious superheroes, and then everything that could go wrong with him goes wrong. He has girlfriends getting murdered constantly.
Let me ask you, so how does this graphic novel compare to the depiction of Daredevil in the Netflix series?
In the Netflix series, I would say that it's 2 trillion times better than the Netflix series. The Netflix series is just a by the numbers TV adaptation of that. Kingpin, he made Kingpin into a serious villain as well, a really serious villain. Bullseye. I don't know if Bullseye features into the Netflix series because I only saw it.
He was in the film by Colin Farrell, but it's not.
Dude, that's one of the worst interpretations of the character of all time. What's his name again? Colin McFarrell?
No, Farrell. Colin Farrell.
Colin Farrell, yeah, that we agree is one of the
no. But Colin Farrell was nowhere near as bad as Ben Affleck. Ben Affleck was horrible.
Could imagine somebody making decisions we need to get Ben Affleck in this, and then who we got to get for Bullseye? Get that Colin Farrell guy.
Machine, very easy, man, because you may have to work with someone who needs to do so.
I know, man. All right.
Zip. All right, man. So I think it's now for my number six. So 10, 9, 8, 7. So right, my number six. Again, this is another big one. And I'm sure, oops, and I am sure that you have the heck? There you go. Sorry, I'm sure that you have viewed this as well. So my number one is, again, it's an origin, and arguably one of the best origins. Batman Year One.
Also by your boy Miller.
Yep.
I almost do this. Almost.
Superb. You see,
Amazing.
whereas Dark Knight Returns was a great concept, but got a bit iffy at the end, this is pretty much perfection from beginning, middle to end. And what makes this so good isn't really Batman. This is Gordon's story. And I think this made Gordon a true character. And I think this just this just shows the brilliance of Frank Miller, that Frank Miller can take, which is why I really want to read Daredevil. Because I'm like, I really wanted to see what he does. You see, now that's something where, like, you know what, that's probably on my Amazon list now of like, you know what, I actually want to read what he does with Daredevil, because Frank Miller can take an existing problem and say, you know what, no. I want to do what no one else has done. And go in, look at the side, look up. Like, again, before this, Gordon was just, hey man, I'm just the dude who just advises Batman. But no. Who is he? Who is his wife? Who are his kids? What is it like being a cop in Gotham City? What is Gotham City like? And I know it's Batman, but let's look at Batman through Gordon's eyes. It's a great storytelling angle to come in from. And that's why, like, Frank Miller always has an angle that he's coming from. So even if we've seen the story before, he can just be like, okay, no, let's just shift it like this and come in from here. And yeah, it's because, okay, for me,
which makes the character, the titular character, more fascinating, in my opinion. If you remove, if you have that extra layer of removal where you're seeing it through somebody else's eyes, right? Although there is first-person narration, I believe, in Batman Year One, primarily it is through Gordon's view, I feel. And also, he totally revolutionized Selina Kyle, reinterpreted her, made her into basically a prostitute, a street hooker. That's like just made her extra seedy. Before, Catwoman was sort of like not totally seedy. She was just like a cat burglar, basically. Oh, perfect, and
no. But also, what I really liked is that he made Gotham feel real. He brought Gotham alive. He's like, wait a minute, why has no one really given this city a real personality? Okay, yeah, we know that it's bad, but no. Let's see why it's really bad. Let's really go down to the streets. Let's go down to the levels. Let's just see what it's like through that alley. Let's see what it's like through that pawn shop and everything. And it's the way he brings it to life is amazing. The way he brings it, because for me, Dark Knight Returns just feels as if you can chip away a few bits of fat. But Year One is like, no, it's beginning, middle, and end. You don't take away a single thing. It's a great beginning, middle, end story. So that's what I just said for this Batman Year One.
Amazing book. And you haven't read Daredevil Year One, you say?
What is it?
You didn't read Daredevil Year One?
I haven't read Daredevil, no, by Frank Miller.
Well,
no. That's what I said. See, that's probably like literally after we're done here, that's on my Amazon list of like, yeah, I want to see his Frank Miller's Daredevil, because the Netflix series is cool, but I'm like, I know that this can go darker.
It's going to be my birthday gift to you. My birthday gift to you is going to be Daredevil Year One.
Oh no! It's dead. It's a gift to myself. That's what. Look, I'm a graphic novel dude.
Your 46th birthday is coming up this year.
Yeah, right? No. My 12. I'm going to be 12 in October, man. Big 12, man. Big 12, man. One more year till I'm 13. I'm going to be a teenager next year. Next October, I'm finally 18. Yeah, baby. All right, man. So
I love it.
So we're now to our top five. So let's have your numero 5, numero cinco.
Top five, which is the manga. It's the manga, and the manga is Akira.
I knew it. I knew it.
It's, it's Akira.
It's hard to be, man.
And listen, and I watched the movie, and I thought the movie was okay. I was floored by the animation, as anybody should be, especially an impressionable 14-year-old or whatever. And the soundtrack was really cool, and just the tone of the movie, but something felt disjointed to me, like it was not entirely coherent. You know what I mean? Like it was a small part of a much larger story. And when I got my hands on the first book, on the first tome, I would call it, of Akira, which is like about this thick, I realized why, because that was just the first of, I believe, 6 volumes that tell the story of Akira. It's a totally epic story that's way more compelling.
I need to say it. Sorry, I need to read the manga because I haven't read the manga.
They're amazing, man. They're amazing.
No, because I went to my comic book store, and the book is like this big. I'm like,
it's basically like a yellow book. It's like a phone book, basically. It's that thick, and I had this edition. There's several editions of the book, and I had several editions of the book. There were several editions of the book. I had the colored version, and the colored version is amazing. I actually didn't read the entire thing. I read 2 volumes, which is enough for me to consider it a masterwork. I hate to do this and to list it this highly, and I have. It's in my bucket list to read the rest of the volumes. But what I've read already is more than enough for me to be able to say Katsushiro Otomo's Akira definitely deserves to be in the top 5.
So better, the same, or worse than the anime?
Substantially better. Substantially better. Substantially better. The anime did a good job of truncating the story massively. And good animation, good soundtrack, like I said, good feel, good vibe, but nowhere near as profound or as well as fleshed out. The characterization, you actually feel for these characters when you read the book. In the anime, you don't have time to feel for any of them. You don't have to have time to feel for Akira or Tetsuo or Kaneda. And in the books you do. You really latch onto them. You create the bond, and there's stakes involved, with the fate of these characters. In the movie, it's just whatever. It's a whole lot of there's a lot of kinetic energy to the movie, a lot of sound and fury, but very little in the way of characterization.
And that's why, because that's where great writing comes in. Is like, can you? Because the benefits of like a manga or a comic book is that you have so much time to build character. But what makes you a great writer is in 2 hours, can you make us care for these characters and really sell the idea of the chemistry of this character? And I think as much as I like the Akira anime, I didn't really feel like I cared much for the characters. I didn't really feel like they were together as much as they were selling me.
I'll give you an example of the old children. Those children that are older, they have numbers. They're not really addressed as people. I believe it's like number 50, whatever. It's a number. They're actual characters in the book that you and in the movie they're just like sort of like a passing reference that you don't really understand why they're there in the first place. Yeah, but I digress. Apple wine machine, man. How many times is my boy Walsh gonna ask you?
It's like
he just wants to give you money.
This is one of the most underrated rivalries in human history. Is machine and Walsh. So what type of wine, bro? Let's see.
I drink wine. He drinks Coors Light, but it's just we're 2 different types of people, man.
No, basically, my thing is that what type of wine and what year?
It's a very recent year. Well, it's 2016, man, but it's this. We've said this before. Give us a tour. Excellent bang for buck. Excellent value. Excellent value. I bang one of these every night, I think.
All right, so
Ever since COVID.
okay, so now for my number 5, man. This is one that most people should know. Most people should know. Written by one of the most revered comic book writers out there. And it's a very politically charged story. And probably when I say politically charged, you probably know which one it is. V for Vendetta. V for Vendetta. One of Alan Moore's greatest pieces of work. Oh wow. A really, really great book. No, machine don't hate, man. Like the film was cool, but the film, similar to what you said about Akira, as good as the film is, the film just did not take us through the depths of what the book took us into. I think when you look at the book, it really delves deep into the kind of political dilemmas and the political kind of dialogue and debates and discourse that was pretty much going on, and you didn't really have that depth in the film, and I think it's just a very smart, interesting book that just gives you a look at life. And what I always ask myself is that is one of the, because again, during the whole Occupy movement and everything, everybody was pretty much wearing them. Like, it's one of the most iconic masks that in history.
Oh yeah.
Were they wearing those masks because of the film, or were they wearing the mask because of the book? That's what I want to know.
Is it the egg or the chicken?
So which is it? Was it the film or was it the thing? But
oh no, it was the people wear the. Oh, that's definitely the film, man.
The film.
Dude, the V for Vendetta comic book was an indie sensation, but it's a very niche sort of thing, The movie was actually sort of teetered on the edge of. Well, it was actually mainstream. It had Natalie Portman and everything, and the dude from The Matrix. I'm actually not a fan. I think Alan Moore's more political work gets on my nerves a little bit, and detracts from the good storytelling qualities that he can offer as an author. Amazing storytelling qualities, and I think once he forgets about making a political statement, as he did in Watchmen and V for Vendetta, then he's really at his very best. And I actually include one of his works in my top 10. I don't want to spoil anything, but I think everybody will be very surprised by which work that is.
I think I might know, but I won't say. But I think I might know which one you have. It's one of two, but I think it's probably. I think I know which one you have, but I'll tell you whether I'm right or not when we get there. But I think just knowing you and on what you would do, I think you probably have this one. But yeah, look, V for Vendetta, man. That's my thing, man. That's my thing. I see. The thing about it is that even if it's highly politically charged and everything, whether I believe his politics or not, I can still take a step back and be like, it's not about whether I believe in his politics or not. It's just a good story.
I just think it's ironic that he, from what I recall of V for Vendetta, it's sort of like a dystopian, right-wing Big Brother state that is watching over everything you do and censors you when you have wrong think, basically. And the truth of the matter is that we're sort of living under that, but it's actually been instilled by the left more so than the right. It's we're living in a left-wing dictatorship where if you have the wrong thing, you're done. Wrong think. Wrong
think. At 1984, the what's the name of that? I can't remember who wrote that book. George Orwell.
Yeah. Well, there's not. It's 1984, and it's
Animal
what,
Farm? No.
what is the other one that everybody references?
Is it Animal Farm?
Brave New World.
Brave New World. See, I've not read that. I haven't read that. All right, man. So you're number 4, man.
Is she ready?
Yes, I'm ready. I'm ready.
Is she ready?
I'm ready.
Are you going to watch the telly? Come up and watch the telly.
Oh mate.
Oh,
Bro, mate.
I think it's
Mate.
absolutely wonderful.
You're right, mate. You're right.
Oh, you're all right, mate. You're all right, mate.
That's like everyone in the pub here.
Right, oh, nice, mate. Cheers. All right, cheers. All right. You know what's yeah.
Oh, wait, oh, nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
we did Saturday night. We did Saturday night. Down the club, mate. Down a little bit of pole, a little party. Yeah, nice. All right, cheers.
That's how
Dude.
they talk, is that?
This is good.
Right.
It's good entertainment. But you know, actually, we were speaking of Alan Moore. We're sort of like aligned because it's Alan Moore, man. Did you guess what it was? Can you guess it? You're not going to guess it.
Oh no! Is this the Alan Moore one? Is it?
Yeah.
Is it
The Alan Moore one? I don't know this one.
League of Extraordinary Gentlemen?
No, it's not.
No.
It's a book named Top 10, which is absolutely his best book for me. And it's an amazing premise. It's an amazing premise because it's like it takes place in a world where everyone's a superhero. And that's such a cool premise, you know. And it's basically a detective story. And this world it's you know, actually Zootropolis, if you remember that
Oh yeah, that cartoon, yeah.
That cartoon with the animals and stuff reminded me a little. There was like some shades of Top 10. I think they borrowed a lot from Top 10 because there's just some elements of Top 10 in Zootropolis, but yeah, it's just fantastically written. It doesn't have any political
What's
going
what's
on.
going on?
Top 10.
Oh,
Oh, you thought I was talking about my top 10 list? No, it's
yeah,
not.
yeah. No. I think we were referencing to our top 10. Didn't know it was actually called top 10.
No, it's actually called Top 10. There's some really cool characters. I'm trying to remember also good art by Gene Ha, who's one of the like a fantastic artist. And I don't know what to tell you, man, why it's so entertaining and why it's so well written. The other one that I really like by Alan Moore, I'm a big fan of. It's funny that the things that I like the most about Alan Moore are things that either are not very well known or things that he sort of detracted. He distanced himself from. Like, for instance, The Killing Joke, which I consider his best one shot, like one of his seminal works for sure. He says it's like one of his least favorite things. He says it's garbage, basically. I think he's absolutely crazy for saying so. And the other one is this top 10 one that's fairly obscure. The other story that I loved
When was this made?
This was early zeros, I think. But I'll tell you something. Another book that I loved by Alan Moore. It's not V for Vendetta and it's not Watchmen, which I don't think are that fantastic. It's this book called Tomorrow Stories. But Tomorrow Stories was an anthology book with several different, completely different, styles and approaches to storytelling. And one of them was a very satirical look into superheroes. And it was called, what was it? Tomorrow Stories. Let me see. Tomorrow Stories by Alan Moore. And what was the one that I really loved? Was The First American. First American, exactly. So cool, man. First American, which was basically like a satire of Captain America, obviously. And also a satire of Americans in general. This was during the Bush era, you have to understand. Right? but and obviously Alan Moore got political with his satire in this, but he did so in a fashion that was actually funny and not too preachy or overindulgent, like I felt he did with. I mean, Watchmen. How do you adapt Watchmen? Like freaking what's his face did Zack, and still retain the Nixon element, which is totally. I mean, Nixon. Who gives a shit about Nixon? He's a relic from the '70s, man. How outdated do you have to get for Snyder to get a clue? You know, and it was already outdated when Moore did it in the '80s. Imagine now in the zeros, man. It's like you should have nixed that for sure. They did do one thing in that movie that was smarter than Moore, which
no. I've never seen the film and I never will, man. Like Snyder for me, I'm like, I'm cool. I'm cool. Bro.
You're cool with everything.
No. I said no. With Snyder from now, like me and Snyder, like I think I'm done with Snyder. So,
but I will say this, and this may sound like a travesty for many. But I rate. I think it's the one movie that he did that was really good, and I rate the Dawn of the Dead remake higher than the original one.
Yeah, I think I saw that. I think that might be probably one of his better films was that Dawn of the Dead remake. But then once I got into his whole music video stuff and everything,
it's his best
trash, man. All right, so my number 4. Is that my number 4? Oh wow. So my number 4 is one that I think we mentioned a bit. Well, we mentioned one of the dudes, Arkham Asylum. So you mentioned Grant Morrison. So this is by Grant Morrison and Dave McKean. So the thing about this is that this for me is the best Batman story. This literally feels like a film. You know how people say, "Oh, we've really seen Batman done justice and made real in the film." Like we have not seen anything close to this kind of content in this. And when you even look at some of the artwork, it's like they're like paintings. So the artwork are like paintings, as you can see. So it feels very eerie and very atmospheric, you know. And again, look, it's like it's a horror story. It's a psychological horror story, and even the kind of tagline is a serious house on serious earth. So even by that tagline, they say, no, we want to now raise the level of this combo character. So as much as Frank Miller really went in deep with a year one, then returns, I think Grant Morrison goes the whole full yards in like, no, this is really real. And this is unlike anything you've ever experienced, probably for any of these kind of like seminal comic book characters. And it's like Batman is really haunted. And when you're watching the film, it's like, when you're reading it, you're like, man, this is scary. Because it goes into detail into Arkham, the guy who helped build the whole story, and you look at his whole psychological issues and Batman's psychological issues, because it's Batman fighting all of his villains, but not in a action kind of way, but much more of a mental way. Because for me, I'm always about the whole psychological aspects from everything. You know, the fights are cool, but I like, you know, a bit of meat on the bone. You know, something that I can really dig my teeth into, and you know, it's a very, very grown up story, a very grown up graphic novel. And again, it just feels that it elevates the kind of medium of the graphic novel. So yeah, man, Arkham Asylum, man, outstanding piece of work. Great art, superb art, great story, and superb writing.
Listen, one of the great pieces of work. It does have that sort of highbrow sort of feel to it. You know what I mean? It feels like a David Lynch. That's David Lynch. Whoever made the comic book, that's the comic book you would have made. You know what I mean? David
Lynch goes way too deep, man.
Yeah, no, David Lynch for me. I don't like David Lynch, and I don't like when things get as esoteric as they do in Arkham Asylum. I like, you know, my narratives to be delivered to me in a way that in ways that are fully, you know, grokkable. And and comprehensible, and Arkham Asylum veers a little too sideways for me in that sense, but I can appreciate its artistry. And actually, one of the great things to do is to read Grant Morrison's script notes on the novel, on the graphic novel, and it gives you a completely an added, in addition, it just gives you an additional layer and context for things that you wouldn't have gotten or would have been very difficult to comprehend just on your own reading.
Wait, so okay,
I don't know
okay,
if you've done that, but it really does give you an added.
so would you say that you're a fan of it, or
I would say that I would rate it highly. I would not rate it in my all-time books, but I do rate it highly, and I do appreciate its artistry. It's sort of like that. That you remember what's the name of that David Lynch movie where it's not Elephant Man, it's the one before that. I think it's
Eraserhead.
Eraserhead, which is super weird, and I mean I can't make heads or tails of it. I don't think there's any meaning behind it, but the visuals are so, the feel of it, the tone is engrossing enough that I respect it, and I'm not. It's not like something that because I don't understand it, I'm gonna dismiss as trash. There's enough there in terms of the tonality and in terms of the feel that it gives me that I'm willing to appreciate it. And that's sort of like what I feel about Arkham Asylum. I much prefer other works by Grant Morrison, but this is it's cool, and I love the art. The artwork is just off the chain.
Okay. So, moving on. So, what is your? So, are we on 3 now? I think we're on 3 now. So, what is your number 3?
Okay, so there's this guy named Peter David. Maybe you haven't heard of him, but he's a writer. He was a writer for Marvel. I think he's retired since, but he's somebody that took the character of the Hulk and totally transformed him, and had the longest running run, basically the longest standing run on a Marvel comic book that I can remember. I think he went 15 years on doing the Hulk, and every year was Peter David, and it was amazing, the stuff that, dude, I promise you, there's not a book, there's like very few books that were written by Peter David of Hulk that aren't worth reading. It's one of the most consistently brilliant runs that I can think of, and it's funny, satirical, and it introduced the Gray Hulk, which is really a really cool concept. He introduced the idea of the Smart Hulk, where Bruce Banner became fused with it became basically like Bruce Banner in the body of the Hulk, right? So you got the genius of Banner with the physicality of the Hulk. He didn't quite go like he wasn't quite as strong, because the idea with the Savage Hulk is that the madder he got, the stronger he got, and this version of genius Hulk, intelligent Hulk, never quite got mad as the Savage Hulk, so he wasn't quite as strong.
But did you actually like that, the whole thing of like him being like Smart Hulk and everything?
I did, because he made it. The way that it happened is that he slowly started to introduce the Banner persona, the strength. Like he got drunk with power, basically, and he got super cocky as it went along, right? So as that version of the Hulk progressed, he started getting more and more egotistical, so that he became sort of like a rock star with drunk with power, and it was just really interesting the way that he interpreted it, and he made these cast of characters around the Hulk really interesting, and he gave them all sort of like these soap operas that would just make it very interesting to buy each new issue,
Okay, so this is your number 3.
My number 3 for sure. Dude, buy, for everybody listening, buy Marvel Visionaries, Peter David, Hulk. So that run, there's about 6 books, I feel. That run is amazing. That run is absolutely amazing.
Okay. So what's his name? So what's his name? Peter what? Peter. What's his name? Peter David?
David. Peter David, yeah. Peter David.
Let's see.
Perfect. Yeah.
Okay. No, you see, for me, like I think like Hulk is a amazing character. But the issue with this is that he's not been done justice. Because it's such a brilliant, because again, like as like my brother said, like it's Jekyll and Hyde. The concept of Hulk is pretty much Jekyll and Hyde, and the fact that you've not really been able to see, that's what I said again.
It's a composite creation. It's a composite. It's a mixture between Jekyll and Hyde, which you mentioned, and Frankenstein, basically. Frankenstein's monster, basically.
Yeah, frankly, no, and people haven't. So in all the films, like the Norton film, Eric Bana film, Mark Ruffalo, they've not really gotten that kind of Frankenstein psychological dilemma kind of concepts from it. Hence why I'll be interested to sort of see and read this.
Read it. And all the other characters around him are fantastic. Rick Jones, the leader. The leader is a really cool character, by the way. The leader. It's funny that is one of the antagonists of the Hulk. He makes added sense when it's just a savage Hulk, and the leader is like some ultra intelligent creature that relies on intellect alone. And it's always funny to see a guy that relies on his intellect to get his ass handed to him by some guy that just smashes. You know what I mean? Smart guy, you go down.
No. Look, but no, I'm definitely going to put it on the list, man, for sure. I'll definitely put it on the list. All right, so my number 3 is a big one, and I think this is probably one that many people would have thought that should. And basically, this is one that is number 1 for many people. But I say, you know what? It'll be number 1 for you guys. This is going to be number 3 for me, and my number 3 is Watchmen. A lot of people put this as the greatest comic book of all time, the greatest graphic novel of all time. But my thing is, it's the reason why it's not my number 1 is
it's boring, because it's boring.
No. This is no. Look, okay. Let me defend Alan Moore. I'm going to come and just keep Alan Moore against. You see, it's the artwork. I don't think is good enough for it to be number 1 on the list. But the reason why it has to be on there is that it's, whether you agree with the story or not or anything, it is incredible storytelling. It is absolutely incredible storytelling. I won't tell a lie. I read this in one go.
Wow.
So this took me about 6-7 hours. So I read it straight from beginning to end during one night, which was just absolutely insane. But yeah, in terms of,
did you read even the pirate parts you like, the ones with the shipwreck and everything?
Oh no! I read everything. I read every single thing, you know. And I think that's why I want to definitely read it again, just so I can understand some of everything he's talking about.
Didn't you feel, first of all, the Adrian Veidt twist, where like he's the bad guy, like as if nobody saw that coming from 10,000 miles away?
No, look, I'm very gullible, so I can't really see twists from that far away. So most twists will always get me because I'm extremely gullible, because I'm so into the story that I can't really see the stuff beyond it, because I'm looking at it from scene to scene. So I never really look beyond it. But even beyond that, I just think the whole idea of having a realistic take on superheroes, having a commentary on the whole ideology of the superhero, the archetype of the superhero, and try to deconstruct that and investigate that, the ideology of it. I just thought that was cool. What's that?
Something to pick stuff in between my teeth. But I will say this, yeah. I mean, it's a seminal work. I find it one of the most overrated books. I hope you don't include this, or we're gonna have a fight. The Long Halloween, I think, is the most overrated.
Oh no,
Book.
no, no, that's not on my list.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Good, no, still a good book though. Still a good book.
I don't like it, but yeah. Watchmen. There's the whole Nixon angle that means nothing to me, right? And it's totally outdated. There's the Adrian Veidt twist, which is not a twist at all, and there's the big like climactic scene where there's like some squid creature that he invokes into. I mean, that's one of the worst like endings of all time, man. Remind me what it
That
is.
didn't make any sense, bro. But no, for me, that didn't bring down the quality of the book. Like,
You
there
know
were-
what I'm talking about, though? Like that squid creature that shows up at the end.
yeah, no, no. I have not read this book in about. My God, I've not read this book in over. I read this book over 10 years ago. I literally read this over 10 years ago, so I've not read it for a very long time. But even if I only read it once, there are a few bits in there that like, okay, this is maybe boring, this may be dragging through, but it's such good storytelling and such bold storytelling. And I think he said so many interesting things about superheroes. And I think it's such a good book that sort of puts a mirror up to comics and the history of comics and comic book and heroes. I just think it's just great. It was just great what he did. And again, similar to Frank Miller, how he attacked and how he approached the story. So this watching man. All right, man. You're number 2.
Is you ready?
I'm as ready as I'll ever be.
Oh man, love it. I love this one, man. And this is something I already sort of suggested to you that you need to go read. And this is Grant Morrison's run on JLA, the Justice League of America, which had sort of languished in obscurity. The concept of the JLA and the DC Comics universe for a long time. There was this run in the 80s that was sort of like a tongue-in-cheek comedic take on the JLA, but nobody had taken the concept of it was called JLA International, which is actually like a fun run. But it's totally different from this. Nobody had really approached the JLA or taken it seriously. It had not been like a tier 1 book in a long time. And then DC looked at what was happening with Marvel's Avengers, where it was like sort of breaking all sales records under Kurt Busiek and George Perez, their run, which I found nothing special. But they were like, hold on, like the super team thing, is this the thing that's going on now? We have characters that are bigger, badder, stronger. We just need a writer that can do them justice. And enter Grant Morrison, and just as he did. Fantastic run. One of this was back in the day when I was collecting like single issues. And one of the most exciting things that could happen is me seeing the new JLA issue, because they always had fantastic cover art. And then the story inside was just amazing. And oftentimes with Morrison, because he's such a special writer.
Very good writer. Very underrated.
Writer who really thinks his scripts through, and he has a depth of knowledge that's beyond most of us. You read his books the first time and you enjoy them, but you're not totally sure what's going on. And then you reread them and you get a better sense of what was going on. And then you reread them again, and then you're like, man, this was genius. And that's the sense that I got as a very young, impressionable youth reading JLA, his run. Like the high water mark for me was Rock of Ages. And and also like the initial run called the New World Order, where he really introduces the stakes and everything. And why did I recommend this to you? Because you were questioning how badass of a character Batman really is, and the idea of him being sort of like a super genius that is 10 steps ahead of everything because he prepares for everything obsessively. And Morrison really nailed that element of the character. And there's this one scene where the JLA is all but defeated. They're all taken out, including Superman and the Martian Manhunter and Wonder Woman and all the heavy hitters, and Steel. And guess who saves the day? It's Batman through his preparation and intellect. And he does this.
But where is this notion that Batman is this like super genius?
I think it's because I think that what Batman represents is human potential taken to its very maximum apotheosis. It's if you were to devote yourself to a cause so feverishly and so single-mindedly, the Batman is what you would get. And somebody took that and ran with it, and they haven't let go since. And I like it. I like it, to be honest with you.
Okay.
He's the apotheosis, the absolute best that a human could be, basically.
Maybe we should have to have like a separate Batman conversation, because
we should, because the other angle is the Tim Burton angle, where it's just like some slacker billionaire type that's like, oh, I guess I'll dress like a bat. The guy that goes like, you want to get nuts? You want to get nuts? Let's get nuts.
Let's get nuts. Come on. Like for me, that's still the ultimate. That's still the only interpretation of Batman that makes sense for me. Like what Burton did, that still is one that really, truly makes sense in my view. Okay, so my number 2. I'm not sure whether you've read. You may have read, but I'm not sure whether you've read this. So my number 2 is. Have you read this?
Actually, I never read it, man. But everybody, Brian Azzarello, 100 Bullets, of course. I've read parts of it in spurts, but I never read the whole thing, and I wish I would, man, because everybody tells me how amazing it is, and it's definitely on my list. So now here we are, man. Another thing that you're gonna make me go to Amazon and order.
This is like. I think Tom Hardy has bought the rights to for this material to make it off of this.
Okay.
I don't know who Tom Hardy is going to play, but yeah, it's basically this feels like a film, and it's not only the really good writing by Brian Azzarello, a very gritty, interesting story, but the artwork from Eduardo Risso is really good. Like just the colors and the art and everything really just jumps off. It really just really, really well. And it's like it's quite a long story. It's quite
it's a detective story, essentially, no?
What is it?
It's a detective story, no?
No. Basically, the concept is there's this guy, bald-headed dude with his suits. Basically, this dude here, who offers an attaché, which is a gun with 100 bullets, and these are 100 untraceable bullets. So whoever has wronged you or so forth, you can go out there and pretty much kill them. So that's like the jump off. So what it is, it's like a story that involves several different characters, and there's particular journeys with being given this gun, but it then expands upon that and now builds into these assassins and so forth, and people be betraying other people. So it's like an intersecting storyline with many different characters, similar to what you see like in Babel or that garbage crap Crash, but obviously better than Crash. So
that sounds like an amazing premise, actually.
It's really good. Like,
how long does it go for?
So there are, I think there might be about 7 or 8 books, but like the books get bigger and bigger as you go for. So I think in total there are about 8 books in total, and
And
I
does
think
it hold up?
it's ending.
Does it hold up throughout the entire run? Or
Like because there are times where I'm like, okay, what the hell? But the story keeps getting more and more interesting because they expand it more and more and more, and they take it in many interesting directions. And yeah, basically it feels like a mixture of Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez, but
Hmm.
in a kind of comic book swag to it, and
Mhm.
swag to it. So, yeah,
So
man,
Guy Ritchie, basically.
not Guy Ritchie. I think
Yeah,
it's a bit more sophisticated than Guy Ritchie. Guy Ritchie is a bit too
he's
uh,
British. He's a bit British.
like low hanging fruit, you
I
know.
think so. I think so as well. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
so
mean,
that,
there's Snatch, and that's about it.
yeah, Bran, really good writer, man, really good writer. Yeah.
You convinced me. Are we? Is YouTube down? Is what you were
Yep,
saying?
YouTube is down.
Why? How can that happen?
I think YouTube has just so basically what. So
Do you
what's
think the Chinese are attacking?
what is it?
Are the Chinese attacking?
I think so. Look, what I told you, COVID, man, COVID. Like once YouTube is done, I think, guys, I think this is literally the end of the world.
Is this it?
Yeah, the end of the world. So you're number one now.
My number one, man. My number one is maybe controversial because I'm gonna bring it down to a more uh, simple, a more innocent, but incredibly genius tone um, with Calvin and Hobbes. Calvin and Hobbes, which is a newspaper strip, so it's a comic strip, but that has been collected with the Absolute Edition. And for me, it's probably the greatest run of comics of all time by Bill Watterson, who was a very elusive sort of creator and very special in the sense that he could have marketed his creation in Calvin and Hobbes and made it into sort of the Simpsons type of deal. But he refused to do one bit of merchandising for it. When everybody was like, "Hey, do the T-shirts, do the comic books, do the video games, do the film adaptations, everything," is like, absolutely not. And he managed to you know through ingenious legal trickery to actually be able to defend his creation. But apart from that, it's just an amazing run of
Wait. What's it about? Like, what's the general synopsis then?
well, the synopsis is this kid that's basically riddled with ADD, very highly intelligent, precocious in his musings and everything, but he's highly imaginative. And he has this pet tiger that's a stuffed tiger, right, named Hobbs, and he comes alive every time nobody's looking, right? Sort of like the Toy Story concept. But he obviously doesn't really come alive. He's his best friend, and they have all these conversations, and they go on all these adventures together. But it's all on Calvin's overexcited imagination. And one of the funniest things about this book is like for example, when he's sitting in class and the teacher's trying to teach him something, and he's staring at her, but in his mind, it's like he's concocting this completely out there adventure where he's like Spiff the spaceman, and he's in, and he sees the teacher as like some awful like Martian creation, like rah, 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 screaming at him and stuff, and and she's just like going, "Calvin, would you give me an answer? What's 2 + 1 and stuff?" It's just hilarious. And then there's this character named Susie, who's this girl that that he's obviously enamored with, but he won't admit it to himself. And he treats her like dirt 90% of the time, but sometimes he sort of his soft side gets the better of him, and you get to see the romantic side of him. That's hilarious as well. Their interaction, his interaction with his father. His father's always like, he has all these questions about the world. He asks his father all these questions about, these basic questions like what's the sun made of and stuff. And his father always comes up with these really these things that throw him completely off the rail and are completely deceptive, but in a really funny way. He's got this mean streak. Dude, it's an amazing comic book. Just read like 6 or 7 strips of it, and if you're not taken with it, or like at least if you're not moderately enthused, then
Okay. So the tiger is like imaginary. No one can see him.
The tiger, nobody can see. He's just a stuffed tiger. Only he can see him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, only he can see him. And it's the very last strip is very poignant and very sad and that was it. And those books that where you feel the finality after years and years of like this thing going, and all of a sudden like you feel like the creator really, all right, this is it, and I'm going to close the chapter on it. And there's no way that we're not going to get sequels. We're not going to get any of that. This is how it ends, and it feels really special to have a book be that way, in a medium that's sort of contaminated by deaths that don't mean anything, and reboots and reinterpretations and continuity wipeouts and crises and stuff like this, like big crisis events where you wipe out the continuity and you start all over again and stuff, and the characters never age but I'm sick of all that. I want like a story that I could read from beginning, that has a beginning, a middle, and an end.
No. That's what I love. I love beginning, middle, and have a concise, complete story.
And actually, like Calvin and Hobbes isn't like that necessarily, because it's like it's a pastiche of different stories. But then when it comes to the end, it's really an end, and you feel like you're saying goodbye to the characters and that you become very attached to, and it feels special,
Okay.
So I think, yeah, for me, it's number one. I could have picked other ones, but dude, I highly recommend this one. This is a high art for me, as far as sequential storytelling goes. It's about as good as it gets.
Okay, interesting, man. Let's say, yeah, this is a classic graphic novel, man. I like the video fights of the Chinese. Okay, so my number one, man. I'm surprised you didn't have this on your list. And I know that I know you've read this. I know you read this because this is a classic. For me, this greatest graphic novel of all time, 300. You must have read this, obviously.
I read it, yes. I read it, and I liked it.
And for me, I just think like this for me represents everything that a graphic novel should be, from the format, the artwork, the visuals, the storytelling, even just the very fact that it's widescreen. Frank Miller, again, he decided, you know what, I'm going to make it like a widescreen. So as you open it up like this massive book that you would get like in a massive castle in like a Game of Thrones or something.
Mm-hmm.
And he ensures that you see the entire landscape of each scene. Again, very simple story, but because it's Frank Miller told it in a very interesting way. Don't even mention that piece of crap film. I've tried watching that.
I was going to ask you, like, so is this where your Snyder hatred began?
Yes, it did actually.
Okay.
Let me tell you what's rubbed me the wrong way. Do you know what really rubbed me the wrong way? Is so in the 300 graphic novel, Xerxes, Frank Miller pretty much makes makes him like I have like kind of like African features, like West stroke East African features and everything. So, oh, this is interesting. Like he has amazing gold. He looks like that. But then Snyder looks at that and he
Cast Rodrigo Santoro is the Brazilian.
a white Brazilian and he
Oh,
tans him.
off white.
Yeah. Basically off-white, and he basically tans him to make him look brown. And he looks like a porcupine. He literally looks like a porcupine. Like, wait, this guy just looks.
Man.
You can easily tell that he's wearing mascara and he's wearing tanned paint because it looks like those movies from back in the 40s where they used to make guys look Chinese and all that kind of stuff back in the Ben Hur days.
Right, yeah, the Fu Manchu movie.
But it's a fantastic piece of work, absolutely fantastic.
But you did listen, but you did big up Sin City, the movie, which I like the Sin City way more than 300. But for how unique it looked visually, but it does borrow a lot from 300 and it owes a lot to 300. And whether we have to, give it to Snyder and the fact that, like, that whole totally green screen interpretation of the comic book adaptation, that's, we owe it to.
No. I think basically for me, I think
300.
No. But the thing about it is, Snyder literally copied scene for scene, pace for pace, the comic. I think Rodriguez adapted it. Snyder copied, Rodriguez adapted. So you could tell that, yes, this isn't exactly like the Sin City comic. This feels like it has sort of been tweaked and alterated for the film.
And the truth of it is,
and paste.
And the truth of it, even if they were both, assuming that they were both equally faithful in their adaptations, the fact is that Rodriguez is 10 times a better director than Snyder. So his adaptation, his method of adapting the comics, even if faithful, were always going to be better than Snyder. Horrendous casting in 300, yeah, possibly. And even
it's horrible.
Yeah.
And I would like to feel morally sound. Well, it is a leftist joint, man. So yeah, so look, man. So that is. So let's just end with this right now. Actually, do you want to go through quickly your 10-1?
10-1. Let's do it again. And if anybody has any questions for us in the chat, I think maybe now is the time. While
guys, send in a few questions before we get out of here.
And to remind everyone, Death and Return of Superman at number 10. Number 9 is Animal Man. Number 8 is The Ultimates by Mark Millar. Number 7 is Roger Stern's and Spider-Man. Number 6 is Frank Miller's Daredevil. Number 5 is Akira. Number 4 is Top 10. Number 3 is Peter David's Hulk Run. And number 2 is JLA. And of course, we just went through my number 1, Calvin and Hobbes.
All right. So mine, number 10, The Matrix Comics. Number 9, Dark Knight Returns. Number 8, Ronin. Number 7, The Death of Superman. Number 6, Batman Year One. Number 5, V for Vendetta. Number 4, Arkham Asylum. Number 3, Watchmen. Number 2, 100 Bullets. And number 1, 300. So I think this might be breaking news that we're seeing here. Are you guys doing a most overrated actors films list? Now, we were going to do that, but in case some of you don't know, Machine is a big time Hollywood producer who works easy, just really around. So Machine is a big time Hollywood producer who works with the likes of Tom Cruise. I think when I spoke to him, like, Machine blocked my call and said, Machine, sorry, I'm on the phone with Tom Cruise and we're working on a new film. So he's a big time producer who breaks bread with Spielberg and Bruckheimer. So the issue with him doing this is
I turn off Bruckheimer
from Hollywood.
Every time Bruckheimer calls me, I actually turn off the phone. I switch off the phone. Every time Bruckheimer calls me, I go like, no more, son. Please. So my block list.
Thoughts on Michael B. Jordan's casting as Tony Montana? in a Scarface remake, which will be written by the Coen brothers. Now, just to wait, to now be very clear here. Al Pacino's Scarface is a remake. Some of you guys may, and some of you young guys may not know that the Al Pacino film is a remake. Scarface film that was made earlier on. So like, oh my, why are they remaking Montana? No. It was already a remake. So it is what it is. So them remaking this again means okay, fine. Because this story is now going to be told several different times. I'm not the biggest fan of Michael B. Jordan. I mean, if we want to go for a black actor, I think Daniel Kaluuya is much better. And I think he's more versatile and more talented. I think Michael B. Jordan feels like a one-trick pony. He's decent and good, but he's good at only doing one particular thing. Look, Coens are superb writers. So it is an interesting mix. But I feel that, let's just see. Let's see who the director is. Let's see what the trailer looks like. But I would have been more interested if they went with like a Nate Parker or a Daniel Kaluuya, personally speaking. What about you?
Yeah, I remember like the Scarface from the 50s that was with James Cagney, I feel. And it was a totally different I might be mistaken. I think it's James Cagney. It was a totally different interpretation. It was the classic gangster, like, hey, see, come on, you're gonna take it.
Yeah.
With the Tommy gun and everything. And then Pacino, that it was a completely different a reinterpretation of the character. It had the Cuban element. So like I think that Scarface is just a gangster, and so I'm not. I don't feel slighted when they try when they do like when they try to like. I don't feel like they're trying to like appease some kind of agenda by casting Michael B. Jordan. I just think it's like whatever. It's Michael B. Jordan playing Scarface. It's not like when they try to like put Bond as what's the name of that they try to cast as Bond? Idris Elba. I mean, that first of all, he's too old. That's the main issue for me. And then Bond is Bond. It's like
no. James Bond can't be black. I'll say it. If you don't want to say it, I'll say it. James Bond can't be black. It doesn't work.
It just makes sense. He wasn't conceived that way. You know what I mean? You can make a really cool character in the Bond universe that's maybe a rival spy to him that's just as competent. You know what I mean? That's black. Come up with like a new character. Don't like re-envision thing. As for Michael B. Jordan as Scarface, I'm fine with it. It doesn't do anything to me. Like it may work, it may not work. I'm not familiar with his work enough. I've seen him in Black Panther. That's about it. And I believe he was in what else was he in? Was he in a Rocky movie or?
Creed. So he was in Creed.
He was in Creed, right?
He was in this recent lawyer film which I didn't watch. I think Just Cause or something. No. Basically, he's like the new It thing. He's like the new guy who, okay, let's just give him all the roles now. So he's like the new cool thing. But just that, I think with Michael B. Jordan, is like, look, the women love him, the girls love him, and everything. He's got.
Yeah, he's a handsome-looking guy, but he's nowhere near as charismatic as to refer back to like a big African American actor. Now I've totally missed out the guy from
What's film?
My freaking Alzheimer's is getting
What he was in, and I'll tell you his name.
Denzel Washington.
Jeez.
Took that long to get to Denzel Washington. Can you believe it?
Oh, that's bad.
No, but he's nowhere like he doesn't have the charisma, man. He doesn't have the magnetism.
I think to be a movie star, you have to have charisma, and you have to be able to have that kind of personality that people like. And I just don't think that it look like. I don't want this to be like the Michael B. Jordan hating part. Just as he is talented, but I just think that Michael B. Jordan needs to be cast in the exact right role, or it won't work. He's not a guy who I think basically. I use the example of Daniel Kaluuya, I think, can very easily meld and blend into many different kinds of roles. I think he is really the dude. Michael B. Jordan, is that you have to give him the right thing and he'll do great. But if you don't give him the right thing, I don't think he's got that.
Who's the top for you? Like the top black actor at the moment in Hollywood?
Daniel Kaluuya for sure.
Is he from True Detective or no?
He's from no, that's Mahershala Ali.
That guy's amazing.
Oh no, he is superb. He's superb, but I think Mahershala Ali, I think he is like he's probably the older kind of guy. I think Daniel Kaluuya, I think, is the guy who I am more excited about because he's much younger and the kind of stuff that he's done. I'm like, oh, I think this guy can definitely.
Oh, he's in Black Panther or no?
Yeah, he's in Black Panther. Yeah.
Yeah, but I didn't like his role in Black Panther that much. He was the guy that he was the Rhino guy, the CGI Rhino guy.
Yeah. No, I
mean, he got pussy whipped by his wife.
Yeah, it's so say he was in Get Out. He was in Sicario, and this film called Widows with Viola Davis.
Okay, I'll keep my eye on him.
So
yeah, but he doesn't have like an amazing charisma that transcends. He's a fantastic actor, but he doesn't have.
Yeah, if we're talking about the guy with that kind of star quality charisma, you know what? I think Terrence Howard wasn't given his fair due.
I'm absolutely with you, Ben. Absolutely with you. I always thought it was a travesty what they did with Iron Man. And
oh no, it was. Remember his scene. Remember his scene. Damn, next time, baby. Like, that was like the best line of the whole film because I was like, oh my gosh, next time this guy's gonna say what's up.
Yeah. But they really did him wrong, and they did. And but the thing is, it shows you how ruthless Marvel were at the time, because he tried to negotiate a better deal, and he was like, got a little greedy, and they were like, no, this is a privilege for you to be a part of this MCU. And he was dumb. He was dumb to try to negotiate it, but they were dumb as well to get rid of him because. For me, way better actor, or way better cast for that role than the guy that they got to.
Oh, Don Cheadle.
Than Don Cheadle.
No. For me, like
everyone else is like they have no.
Don Cheadle.
They have no whatsoever other than being black. Both.
Machine, you don't understand that. Let me tell you this about. I'm so glad you said this. Don Cheadle is one of the most racist pieces of casting ever. Do you know what Don Cheadle is? Who's the first black guy we can think of who has an Oscar? Don Cheadle. Get him in there. It makes no sense. He is horrible for the role. Too short, wrong aura, wrong vibe, no charisma, no screen presence.
Right.
It's such bad casting that the chemistry between him and it just doesn't exist, because you see, if you go from a Terrence Howard to a Jamie Foxx, that makes sense. But from a Terrence Howard to a
what it is? Listen. Imagine that it's like imagine that I was a movie star and I could make the sequel, and somebody cast Al Pacino as my
yeah.
As my substitute, or Ben Affleck.
No. It's
like there's like absolutely no relation other than like we're both.
No. Sorry. He has an Oscar nomination for Hotel Rwanda. He didn't win, but
I don't think he's a bad actor. The thing is, like, I don't think Cheadle's a bad actor. He's just totally miscast. He has like this nervous energy, whereas Terrence Howard is the king of cool.
No. I think it's because you see, Don Cheadle is like he's trying really hard to be cool. He isn't effortlessly cool. It's like if he's trying very hard to be like, yeah, man, I'm really for Terrence Howard. It's just it just oozes off him, and I think that's what you need. Because basically, it's like with Downey Jr., it's effortless. Terrence Howard, it's effortless. Don Cheadle, he's trying to act to be effortless.
How good was the chemistry between Cheadle and Downey Jr.? It's such a shame. That's one of the good things about Iron Man 1 was that chemistry. You
Well,
know what
no, basically, my assumptions are,
I mean?
oh, what is Terrence Howard going to do with the War Machine, and how is he going to work with Downey Jr.? 'Cause I think you could generally feel like there was a friendship that was really organic between him and Howard. So
Mhm.
when he now went to flipping Don Cheadle, I was like, no, sorry. And it is not about, oh, because the characters have changed. It basically, like, for instance, okay, example. It's just that the film was crap. Maggie Gyllenhaal, for me, did a better job than Katie Holmes in Begins. Like,
Uh,
I felt more with what Maggie Gyllenhaal did with
well,
the than Katie Holmes.
I didn't like either of them, but I liked Katie Holmes more because I thought she was more attractive. That's what, you know. So that was enough for me. But the thing with Cheadle, I think even the directors and the powers that be understood that it wasn't working because you don't really see Stark and you don't see Downey Jr. and Cheadle interact all that much. They sort of nix that, you know what I mean?
Mm.
And they crowbar in like War Machine uh, bits and parts into the MCU universe where he's not really doing it. You know, there's no reason for it to be there. It's just like, all
No,
right,
no,
we
no,
have
no,
Don
no,
Cheadle.
no, no, look, War Machine is a horrible character. Like, he is just so bad. And we basically see this thing about me is like, it's very belittling what they sometimes do in terms of, okay, let's just, we need to cater for the black people. Let's just get the black character who's just the black sidekick. That's just, which is why for me, I'm like, screw War Machine, screw Black Panther, screw Falcon. These characters, in my opinion, are garbage. I roll with Blade, Snipes' Blade, and I roll with Spawn. Those are the guys that I roll with, you know.
100 Blade. I don't mind Falcon, but they haven't done anything with him. That's that's the issue.
No. Falcon, he's a side chick. He's basically Antoine Griezmann. He's the Antoine Griezmann of comic. He's a side chick. He's a side.
Yeah, that's what Creason.
Yes. He's the Griezmann of comic books, movies, man.
Absolutely.
Just you're there to kick Captain America's side.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
You know. Okay, look, Lucas, let's get out of here, man, because I need to I need to actually lie down and actually read.
Yeah, of course, man. Let me just say something because somebody was asking about my comic book. It was out. I did a crowdfunding campaign. It's already been closed. So if you want to get in on it, when I launch the second campaign, I'll be offering the opportunity for you to get book 1 and book 2.
So just like a brief kind of synopsis of the comic, like what it's about, what's the story about, what does it involve?
So it takes place in a world where only monsters exist. There's no humans, and it follows this kid, this zombie named Rob Muerto, who is the most popular kid in his all zombie high school. And he's sort of like a Ferris Bueller type, but like the zombie version. And then his dad gets a promotion from janitor to head janitor, and they have to move to the big city. And he transfers over to this high school named Cthulhu High, which is a multi-species high school. And he discovers that, much to his chagrin, that he's not only is he no longer the popular quantity he was in his previous high school, but the zombie species in general are sort of perceived as bottom of the totem pole in monsterdom's societal hierarchy. And he gets on the radar of this kid named Drake, who's a Nosferatu vampire, and basically what he was in the previous high school. And this one, he's by far the most popular kid, like an athletic prodigy. All the girls are obsessed with him, all the monster girls, and all the monster boys want to be him. And he has a particular distaste for zombies. So Rob lands on his radar, and Drake takes it upon himself to make his existence miserable. And it's about Rob dealing with that. And he along the way he befriends this kid named Eddie the Wolfman, and who's sort of like a '90s slacker type that
So, so what's like the driving plot of the story? What's like the story thread, the
Well,
basic story
read
thread?
the first issue of several issues, and the driving plot is Rob trying to adjust to this newfound lack of popularity in the school, and him trying to sort of deal with the fact that he's no longer top dog. You know, it's a big blow to the ego. It's this guy trying to adjust himself to this new.
So basically, it's sort of like a macabre, morbid, Saved by the Bell.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like Ferris Bueller, and then no, it's like a Revenge of the Nerds meets Beetlejuice, I guess.
Oh, okay. Oh no, I love Beetlejuice.
Yeah.
Okay. So is this for everyone or a particular kind of age?
I would say that it's young adult. It's beyond. It's a little below. It's definitely below our age group. But it's if you're between 12 and 18, you're really going to dig it. If you're above that, you're going to be entertained, but you're not going to. It's not going to blow your lid off, basically. You know. But it's something that I can see live as a cartoon beyond the comic book medium, and it's something I can see as a cartoon or a TV show or a movie, what have you. That's the idea. That's why I'm starting it, is to create like sort of a visual aid to sort of pitch it as a TV show. That's the idea of it. And also to get to listen. I'm a big fan of comic books, as you know. And I feel like the best way to tell this story is through the comic book medium. But it's not something that I feel just has to live within the comic book medium alone. It can
be a film or a TV show.
Yes, for sure. I mean, that's the vision.
Well, no. I mean, from looking at the artwork, that work does look very. It's very colorful. It's very colorful, and I think the colors are very nice and rich, you know. And I think
Thank you.
because we see, for me, I like school storylines if they're done well, not cheesy. Because that's what, like, you know, when you think of Ferris Bueller and everything, it was fun. Like when I think of Ferris Bueller, I think of the Breakfast Club. Is that kind of thing where like it could be cheesy, but there's still a good, interesting storyline. And I think even if I despised school, there's a kind of a fun-loving carefreeness of kind of school or high school that you sort of miss, you know. And I think what is good is that this is a nice twist on the kind of high school storyline and everything. So
you know what I think is that high school, whether we like it or not, and regardless of irrespective of our experiences in high school, the fact is that it's the most relatable environment that we can think of, because you and I may be very different, or you and everybody else that's watching us, we're all from different backgrounds, and we're all leading very disparate existences.
But the dynamics are all the same, like bullies, cool kids, nerds.
Dude, but we all went through high school.
Don't like embarrassing moments.
Yeah, the carpenter that fixes Jeff Bezos, what have you, went to high school, and so did Jeff Bezos. You know, that's the thing, that it's an agglutinative sort of environment that everybody can relate with. And I feel that anything that's very relatable, once you impinge a fantastical element onto it, and then it becomes a recipe for success, typically. And that's why Harry Potter was such a phenomenon, is basically that you took a premise, which is wizards in high school. And when people say Spider-Man is such an iconic figure, I don't think Spider-Man is iconic because of his spider powers. I don't think people are...
Oh, no, because he's relatable.
No, it's because it was the first superhero in high school. That's why. That's, you didn't get superheroes in high school. It was either Superman or Captain Marvel or Captain America or Batman. And then all of a sudden you had somebody who could relate with their plight. And not only that, he was like sort of like a gangly nerdish, very geekish figure. So people who were naturally drawn to comic books in the first place, who were sort of outcasts typically, would have related to that especially. Same thing with the X-Men. The X-Men are basically it's superhero high. What if
Yeah.
there was a high school just for superheroes? You know?
And it's about how this family comes together and works together. So
Yeah, so I took that, and also this is something that I conceived of way back, like 10 years ago, and I wrote as a script initially. And at the time, Twilight was a big deal, so that's what sparked the idea. I was like, okay, so Wolfmen, and I never watched Twilight, and I think it's a disaster. But Wolfmen and vampires in high school, the natural extension of that was every other monster in high school, you know? So I wrote it as a screenplay back then, called it Monster High, and then shopped it around LA for like 3 or 4 months. And then all of a sudden, Mattel announced this property called Monster High with basically the same premise, totally different execution, but same premise. And I was like, oh, shit. That's how it goes.
Okay, look, guys. Let's get out of here, man. So, like, thank you very much for joining me, Mr. Machine. And we'll probably look, man. We'll have to think about what we do next Thursday. Overrated films. You see, I have because we wanted to do overrated video games, and I'll really need to think about that if we can do a top 10 of overrated video games. But we'll definitely try and do an overrated list to see what's what. So right now, I think I've pulled a muscle in my back.
Oh man.
Yeah. So I
think
think
is what's killing me.
Yeah. Like
it's COVID. It's COVID.
Yeah, I'm in like extreme pain. I'm like, if I move too sharply,
good.
Something's crazy. So let me just go. I can just lie down on my back, man. So guys,
take care of that.
Stay true. Stay real and all right. Okay, peace. Become a Half Hope Sort member and gain access to exclusive videos and also the chance to watch films, anime, or different videos with your boy HH exclusively. Just click below on the join button to join in and become a Half Hope Sort member to gain access to these perks. Just click on the community icon over here to view the new members only posts just for you.